Visual: a cluttered desk, empty coffee mugs, a ticking clock, and a tired face staring blankly at the screen. There's something almost cinematic about the slow, steady tick of a clock late at night. It's not just a sound, it's a reminder of all the things you didn't get done today, the emails you didn't respond to, the projects you didn't start, let alone finish, and the ever-growing list of responsibilities waiting for you tomorrow. It's a feeling so many of us know too well. But for me, this night wasn't just another late-night hustle. It was the night I realized I was burnt out. I sat there at my desk, surrounded by empty coffee mugs and a mess of papers that seemed to mirror the state of my mind. My laptop glowed faintly in the dark, the cursor blinking on a half-written document that I couldn't find the energy to finish. It wasn't just physical exhaustion, it was something deeper, a weariness that seeped into every corner of my life. Work, relationships, even the things I used to love doing, it all felt like too much. And yet, the voice in my head wouldn't stop whispering, "You can't stop now. You'll fall behind, you'll disappoint everyone." I glanced at the clock. Midnight. Another day gone, and what did I have to show for it? A never-ending cycle of stress and a to-do list that seemed to mock me with every unchecked box. My body was screaming for rest, but my mind wouldn't let me. So, like so many nights before, I reached for another cup of coffee and tried to push through. Spoiler alert, it didn't work. As I stared blankly at the screen, a wave of frustration hit me. How did I get here? When did life become this constant race against time with no finish line in sight? I used to think burnout was just something people said when they were tired, but now I knew better. This wasn't just tiredness, it was an overwhelming sense of being stuck, of running on empty, with no way to refuel. I remember looking around my room that night, searching for something, anything, that could snap me out of it. A motivational quote on the wall, a book on productivity, even the calming sounds of a rain app I'd downloaded weeks ago in a desperate attempt to relax. Nothing helped. I was trapped in my own head, spiraling deeper into a pit of exhaustion and self-doubt. But here's the thing about hitting rock bottom. Sometimes it's the only place where you can stop, breathe, and see things clearly. That night, as I sat there in my haze of burnout, I made a decision. I couldn't keep living like this. Something had to change. I didn't know how or where to start, but I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't keep running on empty. I needed a way out, a way forward. Little did I know that decision would lead me to discover something that would completely transform my life. A time hack so simple, it almost seemed laughable. But that's the thing about simplicity. It's often the most powerful solution to our biggest problems. I won't lie and say it was an instant fix. Change is never easy, especially when you're stuck in the habits that got you there in the first place. But over the weeks that followed, this simple hack became my lifeline. It pulled me out of burnout and gave me back something I hadn't felt in a long time: control over my time and my life. And now, I want to share it with you. Because if you're sitting there, feeling like you're drowning in responsibilities, wondering if there's a way out, I'm here to tell you there is. And it's simpler than you think. So before we dive into the details, I want you to take a moment and reflect. What's your relationship with time right now? Are you in control, or is it controlling you? Because by the end of this story, I hope you'll see that it doesn't have to be this way. You deserve more than burnout. You deserve balance, clarity, and the freedom to live life on your terms. And it all starts with one simple shift. Stay with me. I promise it's worth it. The moment I discovered the time hack that would change my life wasn't dramatic. There was no light bulb over my head, no grand epiphany. Instead, it was quiet and almost unremarkable. I was sitting in my living room late one night, scrolling through my phone with the kind of half-focused aimlessness that only comes from sheer exhaustion. My body was there, but my mind was still stuck on the endless to-do list I'd been chasing all day. As I swiped through posts and articles, one headline caught my eye: "Why time blocking is the secret to getting your life back." I paused. Time blocking. What even is that? I clicked out of curiosity, fully expecting to skim for a few seconds and move on. But the more I read, the more intrigued I became. The article broke down a concept so simple it almost felt too obvious. The idea was to break your day into blocks of time, assigning specific tasks or activities to each block. No multitasking, no distractions, just focused work during the designated time and permission to fully disconnect once the block was over. At first glance, it sounded like every other productivity tip I'd ignored over the years, but something about it felt different. Maybe it was the way the writer explained it, or maybe it was because I was so desperate for a solution, but I decided to give it a shot. I grabbed my phone and opened my calendar app, skeptical but willing to experiment. The first thing I did was block out time for sleep, something I'd been treating as optional for way too long. Then I created blocks for work, breaks, meals, and even relaxation. The key, the article said, was to plan not just for productivity, but for balance. As I stared at the neatly organized blocks on my screen, I felt a flicker of hope. For the first time in a long time, I could see my day laid out clearly. Instead of a chaotic mess of tasks vying for my attention, there was order. I wasn't sure if it would work, but I was willing to find out. The next morning, I woke up feeling both hopeful and apprehensive. Would this be just another failed attempt at fixing my burnout, or could it really make a difference? I decided to start small, focusing on one day at a time. I followed my schedule as best as I could, treating each time block as a commitment I couldn't break. When the block for work ended, I forced myself to step away, even though it felt unnatural. When it was time for a break, I actually took one, without guilt. To my surprise, the first day went smoother than I expected. Sure, it wasn't perfect. I still felt the urge to check emails during my breaks or push through tasks when I was supposed to stop. But there was something oddly freeing about knowing exactly what I was supposed to do at any given moment. It took the guesswork out of my day, reducing the mental load that had been weighing me down for so long. By the end of the week, I noticed something remarkable. I was getting more done in less time. Tasks that used to stretch on for hours were now completed within their designated blocks. I wasn't scrambling to catch up or falling behind. For the first time in what felt like forever, I ended the week feeling accomplished instead of defeated. But the most surprising change wasn't in my productivity. It was in my mindset. I no longer felt like a prisoner to my to-do list. The structure of time blocking gave me permission to let go of perfectionism and embrace balance. It taught me that rest isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. And perhaps most importantly, it showed me that I could take control of my time, even when life felt chaotic. It wasn't all smooth sailing, of course. There were days when I slipped back into old habits, ignoring my schedule and overloading myself with tasks. But the beauty of time blocking is its simplicity. Even when I veered off course, it was easy to reset and start again. No complicated systems, no expensive tools, just me, my calendar, and the commitment to respect my time. Looking back, I realized that discovering time blocking wasn't just a turning point in my battle with burnout, it was a wake-up call. It forced me to confront the habits and beliefs that had led me to this point and gave me the tools to build something better. It wasn't a magic fix, but it was the first step toward reclaiming my life. And that's the thing about simple solutions. They don't need to be revolutionary to work. Sometimes the answer is right in front of you. You just have to be ready to see it. Starting something new, even something as straightforward as time blocking, is never without its challenges. I knew that if I wanted this to work, I had to commit, not just to the process, but to breaking the habits that had led me to burnout in the first place. So, with a mix of determination and skepticism, I set out to implement this hack into my daily life. The first thing I did was carve out a quiet hour to plan my week. I sat at my desk, with my laptop open to my calendar app, a cup of coffee in hand, and a sense of cautious optimism. The article I'd read suggested starting with the non-negotiables: sleep, meals, and breaks. so I blocked those out first. 8 hours for sleep, which felt like a luxury after years of skimping on it. 1 hour for lunch and a couple of shorter breaks throughout the day. Next, I tackled my work tasks. This was where things got tricky. My workload had always felt like an endless, chaotic stream. How could I possibly fit it into neat little blocks? But instead of trying to cram everything into a single day, I divided my tasks across the week, assigning each one to a specific block of time. Emails, 30 minutes in the morning and another 30 in the afternoon. Big projects, 2-hour blocks with a show. Free Netflix binging. For the first time in a long time, my schedule didn't feel like a punishment. It felt like a plan. Day 1 of implementation was interesting. I started the morning with my first-time block, a 2-hour stretch for a project I'd been procrastinating on. Normally, I'd try to multitask, answering emails, checking my phone, and working on the project all at once. But this time, I silenced my notifications, closed all unnecessary tabs, and focused solely on the task at hand. At first, it was hard. My brain kept trying to wander, and I had to keep reminding myself to stay on track. But as the minutes ticked by, something amazing happened. I got into a flow, the kind of deep focus I hadn't experienced in months. By the time the 2 hours were up, I'd made more progress than I thought possible. The rest of the day followed a similar pattern. Work, break, work, break. It felt strange at first, unnatural even. I was so used to pushing through exhaustion that stopping to rest felt almost wrong. But as the day went on, I noticed a difference. I wasn't as frazzled. My energy levels stayed consistent. And when the clock hit 6 p.m., I was able to shut my laptop without that nagging feeling of guilt that usually followed me into the evening. Of course, it wasn't all smooth sailing. On day 3, I completely ignored my schedule, falling back into old habits of overloading myself and working late into the night. But the beauty of time blocking is its flexibility. The next day, I simply adjusted my calendar and started again. No shame, no judgment, just a commitment to keep trying. As the weeks went on, I began to refine the process. I learned to build in buffer time between tasks, so I wouldn't feel rushed if something took longer than expected. I experimented with shorter blocks for smaller tasks and longer blocks for deep work. I even added flex time at the end of each day, where I could catch up on anything I hadn't finished or simply relax if everything was done. The biggest challenge, though, was learning to protect my time blocks. It's one thing to create a schedule, it's another to stick to it. At first, I found myself saying yes to every last-minute request or distraction, letting my carefully planned day fall apart. But over time, I learned to set boundaries. Can we talk in an hour? I'm in the middle of something right now. Let me get back to you after lunch. These simple phrases became my armor, helping me protect the structure I'd worked so hard to build. And then there were the unexpected wins. By dedicating specific blocks to rest and self-care, I rediscovered the joy of hobbies I'd neglected. Reading a book, going for a walk, even cooking a meal, it all felt new again. And because I wasn't trying to squeeze these activities into the cracks of my day, I could fully enjoy them without the constant buzz of stress in the back of my mind. Implementing time blocking wasn't just about organizing my schedule, it was about reclaiming control of my life. It taught me that I didn't have to be a slave to my to-do list, constantly running on empty. Instead, I could work smarter, not harder, and finally make room for the things that truly mattered. It's hard to describe the moment you realize your life is starting to change for the better. At first, the shifts are subtle, almost unnoticeable. But then one day you look around and feel it. Peace. It doesn't happen overnight, and it didn't for me. But slowly, steadily, time blocking began to transform my life in ways I never thought possible. The first thing I noticed was a change in my mornings. Before, my alarm clock felt like a starting gun in a chaotic race. I'd snooze until the last possible second, then rush through my morning in a flurry of half-completed tasks, shoving breakfast into my bag, skimming emails on my phone, mentally preparing for a long, draining day. But with time blocking, I carved out an intentional morning routine. It wasn't complicated or Instagram-worthy. Just 30 minutes to wake up slowly, sip my coffee without distractions, and set my intentions for the day. That small pocket of calm became my anchor, grounding me before the whirlwind of tasks began. Workdays changed too. For years, I had been stuck in a toxic cycle of multitasking, jumping from one unfinished task to another and constantly feeling behind. But now, my time blocks gave me structure and clarity. Knowing exactly what I needed to focus on and when helped me approach each task with more intention. I found myself finishing projects faster, with fewer mistakes. The dreaded email inbox became manageable, no longer a source of anxiety. And because I wasn't trying to cram everything into one day, I started leaving work on time, something that once felt impossible. But the real transformation wasn't just about productivity, it was about how I felt. Time blocking gave me permission to let go of the guilt that had haunted me for years, the guilt of not doing enough, of not being enough. By designating time for breaks, hobbies, and self-care, I started to realize that rest wasn't a weakness, it was a necessity. When I rested, I worked better. When I prioritized myself, I had more to give to others. One of the most surprising changes was how time blocking affected my relationships. Before, I was so consumed by work and burnout that I rarely had the energy to connect with the people I cared about. I'd cancel plans, respond to texts late, and half listen during conversations because my mind was elsewhere. But now, with time set aside for friends and family, I could be fully present. Dinner with a friend wasn't an afterthought squeezed into a packed schedule, it was a priority. I found myself laughing more, connecting more deeply, and rebuilding relationships I'd unintentionally neglected. Even my health improved. With time dedicated to exercise and proper meals, I felt stronger and more energized. I started sleeping better thanks to a consistent bedtime routine and fewer late-night work sessions. The constant brain fog that had plagued me for months lifted, replaced by a clarity I hadn't experienced in years. It wasn't just my body that felt better. My mind did too. The sense of control and balance that time blocking gave me reduced my anxiety, turning what once felt like a constant storm into occasional drizzles I could handle. Of course, there were still challenges. Life is unpredictable, and there were days when my carefully planned schedule got derailed by emergencies or unexpected demands. But even on those days, time blocking provided a framework to fall back on. Instead of spiraling into chaos, I could adjust, reshuffle, and move forward without losing my footing. Perhaps the most profound transformation was internal. Time blocking didn't just help me manage my time, it helped me redefine my relationship with it. I stopped seeing time as my enemy, something I was always racing against. Instead, I saw it as a resource, something I could shape and use to create the life I wanted. That shift in perspective was liberating. I no longer felt like a victim of my schedule. I was in control. One day, a friend who hadn't seen me in months said, "You seem different, calmer, happier. What changed?" I smiled and told them about time blocking. But the truth was, it wasn't just the hack itself. It was the way it had forced me to rethink my priorities, my habits, and my mindset. Time blocking was the tool, but the real work was in learning to respect my own limits and value my own time. Looking back, I'm amazed at how far I've come. A few months ago, I was stuck in a cycle of burnout, feeling like there was no way out. Now my days feel purposeful, my work feels manageable, and my life feels full. I'm not perfect. I still have busy days, moments of stress, and times when I fall off track. But I've learned that progress is more important than perfection, and thanks to time blocking, I've discovered a way to move forward, one block at a time. If there's one thing I want you to take away from my story, it's this. You don't have to live in a constant state of overwhelm. There's a way out. And sometimes it starts with something as simple as taking control of your calendar. Trust me, it's worth it. If there's one thing I've learned from this journey, it's that burnout isn't a personal failure. It's a sign that something in your life needs to change. For so long, I thought the only way to succeed was to work harder, push through the exhaustion, and keep going no matter what. But here's the truth. Success isn't just about how much you do, it's about how you manage your time, your energy, and your priorities. Time blocking taught me that balance is possible, but it doesn't happen by accident. It's something you have to create intentionally, one decision at a time. The beauty of this system is its simplicity. You don't need expensive planners, complicated tools, or hours of free time to implement it. All you need is a calendar, a plan, and the commitment to stick with it. What surprised me most was how much time I actually had once I started using it wisely. Before, I was caught in a cycle of multitasking, procrastinating, and overcommitting. But when I started assigning specific tasks to specific blocks of time, everything became clearer. I wasn't just reacting to the chaos of my day, I was proactively shaping it. That shift was empowering. But let's be real, change isn't easy. When you first start time blocking, it might feel awkward or restrictive. You might slip up, miss a block, or fall back into old habits. That's okay. Progress isn't about perfection, it's about consistency. Even when I messed up, I reminded myself that every block was a fresh start. And over time, those small adjustments added up to big changes. The biggest lesson I learned was the importance of setting boundaries, not just with others, but with myself. Saying no to distractions, unnecessary commitments, and the urge to overwork was one of the hardest things I've ever done. But it was also one of the most freeing. Boundaries aren't about shutting people out or doing less. They're about making space for what really matters. Time blocking didn't just help me manage my time better, it changed the way I think about my time. I used to see it as something that was always slipping away, something I could never control. Now I see it as a gift. Every day is a new opportunity to choose how I spend my time, and that choice has made all the difference. And here's the thing, you don't have to be perfect at this to see results. Even small steps, like dedicating one block of time to rest, or focusing on a single task instead of multitasking, can have a huge impact. The point isn't to fill every moment of your day with productivity. It's to create a life that feels balanced, meaningful, and manageable. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, burnt out, or stuck, I want you to know there's hope. You don't have to live in a constant state of stress. You don't have to accept burnout as the price of success. There's a better way, and it starts with one simple change: taking control of your time. Think about it. How would your life look if you could spend your time intentionally? What would you focus on if you weren't constantly putting out fires or trying to catch up? For me, time blocking didn't just help me get more done. It helped me reclaim my peace, my relationships, and my joy. And I believe it can do the same for you. Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with this. You are not your productivity. Your worth isn't measured by how much you accomplish in a day. You deserve rest, balance, and the freedom to enjoy your life, not just survive it. Time blocking is a tool to help you get there, but the real transformation comes from within. So, I challenge you to try it. Open your calendar, create a few blocks, and see what happens. Start small and be patient with yourself. Change takes time, but every step forward is a victory. And who knows, this simple hack might just pull you out of burnout too. If this story resonated with you, take a moment to reflect. What's one thing you could do today to take control of your time? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your journey. And remember, you've got this. Your time is yours to reclaim. As we wrap up this journey, I want to leave you with a simple challenge. Imagine just for a moment what your life could look like if burnout wasn't your default setting. Imagine waking up in the morning feeling rested, with a clear plan for the day and the confidence that you can handle whatever comes your way. That's not just a dream, it's possible, and it starts with one small change: taking control of your time. If you've been nodding along, feeling like this story is your story, then now is your moment. You've heard how time blocking transformed my life, and now it's your turn. But here's the thing. It only works if you take that first step. So here's what I want you to do. Open your calendar, whether it's on your phone, your computer, or even a paper planner. Block out your non-negotiables. Start with sleep, meals, and breaks. These are the foundation of your day, and they deserve priority. Choose one task that's been weighing on you and give it its own time block. No multitasking, no distractions. Just focused effort. Stick to it. Treat your time blocks like appointments you can't miss. And most importantly, don't wait. The best time to start is now, while the idea is fresh in your mind and your motivation is high. I know this might feel overwhelming, especially if you're already feeling burnt out. But remember, you don't have to get it perfect on the first try, or even the second or third. The goal isn't perfection, it's progress. Every small step you take brings you closer to a life that feels manageable, balanced, and truly yours. If you're still unsure, think about this. What's the cost of not trying? Another week, month, or year of burnout? More nights spent staring at the ceiling, wishing things were different? You deserve better. You deserve to feel in control of your time and your life. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you tried time blocking before? What worked for you and what didn't? Or if you're just starting out, what's one thing you're excited to schedule into your first block? Drop a comment below. I read every single one, and I can't wait to hear your stories. And while you're here, don't forget to hit that like button if this video resonated with you. Subscribe for more stories like this. Stories that aren't just about surviving life, but thriving in it. I've got more tips, tricks, and personal insights to help you create a life you love, one step at a time. If this story has inspired you, take a moment to share it with someone who might need it. Whether it's a friend, a colleague, or a loved one, you never know whose life you might impact by passing this along. And who knows, maybe this simple time hack could pull them out of burnout too. Thank you for spending your time with me today. Remember, your time is valuable, your peace is priceless, and your journey to a better life starts right here, right now. Let's make it happen. Together.